Hello and welcome to this Joyful Minds video recorded as part of the January 2021 Joyful Minds Transformation Summit. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more and drop your thoughts and comments in the section below. Yes, brilliant. Hello, everyone in the Joyful Minds community that is watching us and joining us now live or joining us on replay. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm Sarah Watts, transformational coach and founder of Joyful Minds. And I started a coaching practice last year called Joyful Minds, and I now offer individual coaching and group coaching, retreats and circles, women's circles. So I'm hosting this summit across the week, the Transformational Summit, to provide some inspiration to people who are looking to make changes in their life or who are interested in personal growth and furthering themselves in one way or another. And so there's a number of different talks across the week designed to speak to you, inspire you, give you more information about various tools and techniques and modalities, with the view that if one of those resonates with you, you might explore it more deeply. So today's session is on how to live a mindful life, and I'm really pleased to introduce to you David Hopkins. Hi, David. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm really pleased. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to add value to people's lives.
Oh, thank you for joining us. So David and I met when we did our NLP training together. So for those of you that were watching the NLP session yesterday, we were with Andy. And let me just say a few words about David. So I was just looking for your introduction, David, and I don't seem to have it to hand, actually. Would you like to share a bit about your...
I would, yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you go ahead.
I guess I was introduced to mindfulness and I didn't know it was mindfulness when I was around about 17 years old. And I picked up a book. I was worried about everything. I thought I'd been thrown out of college. And I just went into the library very distraught and just kind of picked up this book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. And his first chapter was called Living in Day-Tight Compartments. And basically, he talked about how we can live any day if we just focus on living from sunrise to sunset. And we can be safe in that kind of space without worrying about what we did, what went before, without worrying about what's ahead of us, but just being in this present moment or this present day is a safe place to be. And mindfulness, which I discovered probably about 15 years ago, is simply developing that kind of concept. That's one of the facets of mindfulness, which I'm going to include in my talk. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. I think that's so important. And we were just chatting before, weren't we, about, how everyone is, well, currently we're all experiencing a lot of challenges, but also how we're becoming more disconnected with ourselves, with juggling, emails and social media, and everything's getting quicker. And, so how do we sort of slow down and be in the present moment and the power that can bring? So
Sure.
Lovely. Right. Well, I will hand over to you, David, and allow you to take the floor.
Thank you. So the title of my talk is Living a Mindful Life. And some of you may or may not be familiar with mindfulness meditation practice. And it's one thing to kind of sit on the meditation cushion in a ring-fenced time and just meditate. But what I want to say is it's about what you do off the cushion. It's about bringing mindfulness into every aspect of your daily, momentarily experience, whether you're eating food, whether you're having a cuddle with your children or your partner, or whether you're just at work, whether you're on that telephone call. You can always be in that moment. You can always use any experience as an anchor, as a portal for mindfulness. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And my kind of initial title of my talk was that this present moment is a gift. That's why it's called the present. And that's one of the biggest kind of focuses really for that's one of the first facets that I'm going to be talking about. So the three facets that I'm going to be outlining today are living in the present moment. It's about ending suffering, and it's also about responding to ourselves and others with kindfulness, with that kindness and compassion. So I think probably a nice way to introduce and start off is to just read out a poem by, it's called The Guest House. It's by Rumi, who was a Sufi poet. And to me, it kind of epitomizes what mindfulness is all about. So this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if there's a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing out for you some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them all at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I think that's most important. That's what my talk is about today. It's about welcoming in any experience for as it is. So the first facet is the present moment, and there is only this moment. And this moment is eternal. It has no beginning. It has no end. It's always now. And some people might scratch their head and say, well, okay, there's no past or future. No, there isn't, because it's always now. And you might say, well, you know, David, you came online 5 minutes ago. Surely that was the past. But when I came on 5 minutes ago, I didn't say, oh, it's 5 minutes ago. I came on and it was now. And you might say, well, okay, what about the past? When you go offline at 1:45, that's going to be the future. And I say, well, okay, so when it comes to it's 1:45, I won't suddenly say, right, okay, it's now 45 minutes time. It will still be now. So we can no more live outside of this moment for 8 seconds as we can 8 years. It's always this present moment. And so one of the facets of mindfulness is about how do we find an anchor to bring ourselves into this present moment, so that we can cut out all the worry about what's going to happen. We can cut out all the rumination about what has already happened, and we can simply be in this peaceful place. And it might be uncomfortable, but we can be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It might be joyous, and we might want to cling on to that experience of joy and happiness and peace. But when we start to do that, when we start to cling to it, we're worried about, oh, I don't want this moment to end. You know, I want it to always be like this. And that can actually cause us suffering. So we're going to do a practice shortly so we can actually experience all of this. Okay. The second part of the second facet is about having an end to suffering. And this is quite controversial, and a lot of people might kind of question this. But the way I see things is that pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. So is there a difference then? What's the difference between pain and suffering? Well, we all experience pain. Pain is inevitable throughout our lives. We can't avoid it. Even being born is painful. Growing old is painful. We become sick, we get injured, we experience grief, we experience difficult, unpleasant emotions. And we can't avoid that. It's part of being human, it's part of living. Suffering comes about by the way that we react or respond to that pain. So what actually causes suffering? And I would say attachment or clinging or resistance to what is in this moment. So let me give you an example. I read a book by Jack Canfield called The Success Principles, and in there Jack cites a formula: E plus R equals O. I think this illustrates very well, what I'm talking about here. So we have an event, which is the E, event or a situation. The way we react or respond, which is the R, to that event or situation gives us an outcome or a result. That's the O. So, for example, if something happens, say like if I get injured, if I fall over and get injured, right? That's an event, right? Now the way I respond to that event, if I trip up and break my arm or something, I can either think, well, okay, so I'm really lucky that's all that happened. I broke my arm. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of it's going to cause me a lot of pain and what have you, but at least it's going to mend. Or at least I didn't break both arms, or at least I didn't break my neck. Or I can say, oh, this is awful. How am I going to work now? Is it going to repair itself? How stupid am I? And I could beat myself up mercilessly. So two people can experience the same event, and both of them can have a different outcome depending on how they respond to that event. So what I would say is, to make it to give it more clarity, supposing that I had this accident, I fell over and broke my arm, and the pain from that was intense. Let's say on a 0 to 10 scale, it was about at an 8. Now, the way I respond to that event, to that break in my arm, gives us an outcome of suffering. So let's say that if I fully accept it and I just don't just embrace it as it is, and my acceptance of that, if there's a scale of 0 to 10, where on the 0 end, that is an acceptance. On the 10 end, that's the level of resistance. And if I fully embrace it, said, okay, this is just what's happened, and my resistance to it was at a 0, and then the pain of being at an 8 and the resistance being at a 0, 8 times 0 is 0. So in other words, the suffering is at a 0. 8 times 0 is 0. If, on the other hand, my resistance, my wishing I hadn't done that, calling myself stupid, beating myself up, was at a 9, and 8 times 9 is what? 81? No, 72? Yeah, 72. So I've gone from an 8, which is the pain level, to 72, which is the suffering level. So as I say, whether we embrace it or resist it gives us an outcome of suffering. And the third facet of mindfulness is about self-compassion and kindfulness. And again, if we take that example of getting injured, and we respond to ourselves with, instead of being unkind to ourselves and beating ourselves up and saying how stupid we are and how clumsy we are and how, yeah, I'm always like this is typical of me, or blaming other people, if instead we just simply respond with kindness and compassion, as if we would to someone that we love deeply, one of our children or maybe a partner that's injured, and just respond to them and give them that comfort and that acceptance and that love, and know that they're doing the best that they can with who they are. So what I want to do now is just kind of give you I'll offer you a guided meditation, a guided practice of how we can actually anchor ourselves in this present moment, simply by bringing our attention to our breath and to any body sensations. So in order to do that, what I want you to do is just get yourself into a comfortable position. You might want to sit upright in the chair, but and just kind of find that, just, you might want to rock backwards, from side to side, backwards and forwards, until you get that kind of sweet spot that takes very little maintenance. If you imagine getting a broom and you balance the broom on its handle, and you just get that sweet spot where you can wobble it from side to side until it's just gets to that right balance place. If you do that with your body, where it takes very little effort to hold that, to keep that broom handle in the same place. And you can do this with your eyes closed, eyes open. And just begin by just noticing your breath. Bring your attention to your breath. And you're just noticing your breathing as it is. You're not trying to make anything happen. You're not trying to get into any particular state. You're just noticing your breath, what it is in this moment. And whereabouts are you feeling your breath the most? Is it air passing through your nose or mouth? Is it the rise and fall of your chest? Or is it your belly as it expands and contracts? And you might notice thoughts popping into your head. And if that happens, just bring your attention back to your breath. You might notice sounds in the background. Just allow them to be there. And if you get distracted, if your mind starts to wander off, just come back to your breathing. You might drop your attention into your body. Notice what's going on there. Noticing any pleasant sensations, any discomfort. And just allowing those sensations to be present in your awareness. And then in a moment, just bring your awareness back into the room. And the great thing is that wherever you are, whether you're stuck in a traffic jam, whether you just come off the phone, having an awkward conversation with someone, or whether you're just standing in a supermarket queue at the checkout, or simply walking in nature, or in a busy street, you can use your breath, use that awareness of your body in any of those situations, just to give yourself that oasis of calm. And when you find, maybe you've just experienced some adversity, you can probably even turn your attention to how that adversity is affecting you emotionally and how your emotions are manifesting themselves through your body, and just be at peace with that. Stop trying to let go of the resistance to it and just allow it to be there, and knowing that it will pass. It's only when we start to fight it, or we beat ourselves up for being so stupid. Why am I making such an issue out of this? And we can just accept it and know that it will move on. We bring ourselves back into a more resourceful state. And when we learn instead to treat ourselves with respect and with kindness and compassion, again, that melts away that suffering. And we can use it as we can use sounds, we can use smells, tastes, any of the sensations from our five senses as an anchor, as a portal to be present in this moment. And that's what I'd encourage you to do. So look for opportunities, whether you're washing the pots, whether you're cleaning your teeth. You can use any of those activities as a means of grounding you in the present moment. And I was talking to you earlier, Sarah. I'd like to kind of close on this really, because you were talking about how busy we are, and we're always striving for something and an expectation that we're going to get to that ultimate destination. And I think again, this is a bit of prose that that kind of brings that home to us. This is The Station by a guy, Robert J. Hastings. And again, you can Google that, we can put it in the chat. Tucked away in our subconscious is an idyllic vision. We're travelling by train. Out of the windows, we drink in the passing scenes of children waving at crossings. Cattle grazing on a distant hillside, row upon row of corn and wheat. flatlands and valleys, mountains and rolling hillsides and city skylines. But uppermost in our minds is the final destination. On a certain day, we will pull into the station. Bands will be playing and flags waving. Once we get there, our dreams will come true and the pieces of our lives will fit together like a completed jigsaw. Restlessly, we pace the aisles, damning the minutes, waiting for the station. When we reach the station, that will be it, we cry. When I'm 18, when I buy that new Mercedes Benz, when I put the last kid through college, when I've paid off the mortgage, when I get promotion, when I reach retirement, I shall live happily ever after. Sooner or later, we realise there is no station, no one place to arrive. The true joy of life is the trip. The station is only a dream. It constantly outdistances us. Relish the moment is a good motto. It isn't the burdens of today that drive men mad. It's the regrets over yesterday and the fear of tomorrow. Regret and fear are the twin thieves who rob us of today. Regret is reality after the facts. So stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, climb more mountains, eat more ice cream, go barefoot more often, swim more rivers, watch more sunsets, laugh more, cry less. Life must be lived as we go along. The station will come soon enough. Sarah.
Lovely, David. That was great. Thank you. Yeah, I was making so many notes as you were talking, and so much resonated with me. And I'd like to invite those of you that are watching and listening, drop any questions you've got into the chat, and we can talk about that. So I guess what really landed with me was this idea of being in the present, and what you were talking about around, when we live in the past or the future, that's what causes us to have suffering, and also this resistance to where we really are. And that causes the pain. And I really liked it when you were talking about kindfulness as well. Kindfulness and self-compassion. And, we said this earlier, didn't we? We're quite able to afford compassion to others, but not
Yeah,
usually to ourselves.
yeah.
Um, and I guess one of the questions we've got is how would you define mindfulness? Because I think things get a bit lost sometimes, don't they, between what's mindfulness, what's meditation, what's other things. It can all get a bit blurry. So would you define that for us?
Mm. How long we got?
Yeah.
I think the classic definition, and I don't have it to hand, but the classic definition has been by John Kabat-Zinn, who is a Zen mindfulness practitioner. So I'd reference that. I don't actually have it in front of me, but I would say, those three components, really, those three facets. If you imagine that mindfulness is like a jewel, and the diamond has several facets and also has sub facets, and when we're practicing meditation, we're just focusing on the beauty of the facet of that diamond. And each time we visit it, we learn something new. It's a different experience.
Mm.
It doesn't matter whether we practiced 10 years ago or in 10 years' time. We can still find something new in that experience. So mindfulness practice is about visiting that facet. So it's about visiting that kind of portal, that anchor of being present and just noticing what is, rather than getting lost in what was, what's going to be, but just staying with the moment and trusting. It's just surrendering to the moment and not trying to make something happen, just being instead of that constant doing.
Mm.
Just sitting on the train and watching the fields and watching the children waving and watching the cattle grazing.
Mm.
instead of thinking, oh, I want to get there, and oh, did I leave the gas on? Did just getting caught up in head stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
So say that would be one of the main things. And the second one is accepting the moment without adding to it,
Mm-hmm.
with accepting this present moment experience without analyzing it, worrying about it, wish it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Being comfortable with this moment, whether it's uncomfortable or whether it's really pleasurable, not trying to cling to it, thinking, oh, when you're coming back on holiday, you think, oh, I don't want to go home. Just be present in that on that last day and enjoy the sun, enjoy the sound, enjoy the sea.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to kind of cling on to it, just let it pass.
Because we can't cling on to it anyway, can we?
That's right, but we can make ourselves miserable trying to.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And as I say, the final thing is about you can't really have mindfulness without that compassion, without that self kindness and that unconditional love. Yeah, we screw up, let's face it, all of us, we make mistakes, and with hindsight we could do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
But that will beat ourselves up doesn't improve the situation, it just makes it worse. But if you can respond, say, hey, I'm human,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I make mistakes, but I'm not a mistake, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. I've got a question here from Shahid. So he asks, how do you bring someone with extreme resistance to being still and silent of their mind chatter? So how do you be still and silent?
How do you bring someone?
Yeah, how do you bring someone with extreme resistance to being still and silent of their
I
mind?
think really all you can do is bring that stillness to yourself and be present with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just like a bit like, if someone is in distress, just to sit with them,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe just kind of rest your hand on the shoulder or on their elbow there, and just be present with them, and know that it will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And just help them to feel comfortable with that being uncomfortable. And if someone is in pain because of some physical reason or some emotional reason, we're not trying to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're helping them to be with it, knowing that it will pass. Because the suffering doesn't come from that emotion itself. It comes from the resistance to it.
Yeah, yeah. What we resist persists.
Yeah. So if I'm having an emotion of grief or fear or whatever, yeah,
Mm,
to actually kind of say, okay, so where in my body, how is that emotion manifesting itself, presenting itself in my body? And I might go, oh, well, I feel like tight around my chest, around my throat. I can feel this tension in my stomach. And then just to kind of sit with that and say, okay, so let's bring some love, some kindness to that area.
mm,
And let's just shine that light, that warmth on that part of us that has experienced the pain and discomfort.
mm,
And then notice what happens when you do that.
mm.
Rather than get into a flap and think, oh, I'm gonna have a heart attack, oh I'm gonna be sick.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And
I,
then just notice that it shifts.
mm, yeah, like you say, it's
Or if it doesn't, just notice it as it is and
mm,
accept it.
mm. Yeah, because the labels that we put on things has an impact to how we feel about them, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Jim's sharing, been on the mindfulness meditation journey for some 27 years now, off and on. Well done, Jim. Letting it go for long periods is so easy to do. Yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it, that gets easier with
Sure.
practice.
Yeah,
Um,
this is it. And it's about what we say with the station. It's not about getting to a particular destination.
mm.
People say, oh, practice for 30 years. Someday I'm probably going to reach enlightenment. That which we see as enlightenment isn't enlightenment. We can only be enlightened in this moment. We can't get to that point.
Mm.
And we just practice. And sometimes we experience that moment of bliss. Sometimes we experience like we're going through hell, you know. Um, but we know that we're not going to be stuck there. You know, we can just sit. We can just come back to our breath. We can just anchor ourselves in this moment, whatever, you know, whatever way, whatever it brings us to, and just welcome it in. It's like with the guest house again, you know, it's like every morning, you know, just welcome in whatever comes through. It's interesting that the guy, Krishnamurti, who was an Indian spiritual teacher, and he was given a presentation and he announced that he was going to give people the secret of happiness. And everyone was kind of saying, "Oh, Krishnamurti's going to give us the secret of happiness! Wow!" And you know, they get the notepads out. And he said, "Are you ready for this?" And everyone, "Oh, yes, please, yeah." Oh. And he said, "The secret to my happiness is I don't mind what happens." And it's like, and there was no and. And when we don't mind what happens, when we totally surrender to what is in this moment, we can do that. Whatever's going on out there, if we can just be okay with that, we're not trying to create some amazing euphoric state. That's not what it's about. It's about complete acceptance, like letting go of resistance and embracing what is, whatever it is.
It's the resistance that causes the suffering.
We
Yeah.
can only practice mindfulness meditation in this moment. We can't bank it up. And we can do that at any point. The more we practice, the easier we can kind of slip into that state. And practice doing it when you're in the checkout queue. Practice doing it when people are road raging. Practice doing it when you're having when you're cuddling your kids, or when you're making love, or whether you're in the forest. There's always that kind of portal. And the best way of doing it is starting with your breath, because we're always breathing.
Yeah. I think that there's something really powerful about mindfulness, you know, in a personal development journey, isn't there? We were talking yesterday about how can we get out in front of our thoughts, you know, and be not reacting. You know, we're kind of making that choice, I think one of the things about mindfulness is about being the observer, you know, but
Yes.
rather than being the one in it.
Yeah.
We're able to see what's going on and, you know, have more of a choice
Yeah.
between how we respond,
Yeah.
even if it's, you know, not the natural thing to do all the time,
Sure.
you know, is to catch yourself.
And we all do it. We'll do it. But the more we know, the more we know the truth of who we are,
Yeah.
the easier it is to kind of spot the lies. You
Mm.
know, spot the lies that we tell ourselves. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting metaphor is if you imagine that we are as our core self, this diamond, this jewel, this brilliance at our core. Yeah, and this diamond is encased in a block of ice, and the problem is we believe that the block of ice is who we are, and what we do is we fail to see the diamond and to know that the diamond at the core is the truth of who we are. And this ice is made up of all the flack that's flung at us, you know, by our parents, our peers, our teachers, and by our experiences. And the way to get back to that core, to get rid of that ice, if you like, and to discover the true self, we could smash it with a hammer and chisel. We could get a blowtorch on it. We could stick it in the microwave. No, no. The way to do it is just to. It's a little bit like putting that block of ice in the warmth and light of gentle sunshine. And what happens is the ice begins to soften, and it begins to melt, and it begins to evaporate. We're not trying to rush this. We're not trying to think, oh, what happens if more ice comes? All we're doing is just shining that light of awareness on that diamond, on that block of ice. And then eventually what's revealed is the beauty, the truth of who we are.
Mm.
And we're awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I've got another question from Jim. So Jim says, David, what's your view on mindfulness-based stress relief courses, MBSR?
I think it's great. It's been shown scientifically. It's interesting that science now, through neuroscience, through the fMRI scans, is actually showing physiological changes in the brain. There's so much research being done now, and mindfulness based stress reduction is showing to be effective, if not more effective than any of the other treatments, medication, CBT. It ranks high amongst all of them. And it's interesting that that now they're bringing over some of the monks from over in India and Thailand and over in the Eastern Bloc there, and they're putting on under the MRI scans, and they're just giving them a situation to worry about, problem, and they're scanning them, and it's like it's just profound how through the years and years of meditation they are showing, different areas in the brain are lighting up, which shows that they're happier than any of us. So they've been doing it for 2,500 years. And now the West is slowly catching up and realizing, hey, we've got something to learn from ancient traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, Jim, drop a note if there's anything else. For the rest of us, do you want to explain what you mean by a mindfulness-based stress relief course?
Okay. It's a practice, again, brought over to the West by John Kabat-Zinn, who is an American consultant. And yeah, and he asked the senior consultants if he could run a program on stress reduction, basically, teaching people to meditate.
Right.
And and then he found some incredible things. As I say, people with long-term depression and long-term stress and long-term anxiety, through running this 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program, they made such profound changes, and they put them under the MRI scan before and after, and just couldn't understand. It's just like these results are profound. In fact, he thought there must have been some mistake in his research outcomes, so he repeated the experiment with a different group, and he found the same thing happened again. So they kind of measured it with control groups, people on medication, people on other treatments, and people are going through the mindfulness stress reduction program. And again, the results bared up under that scrutiny. And so rather than say, oh, we're going to run a program on mindfulness meditation, which would have sounded woo-woo, and to get funding for that would have been pretty difficult, aroused skeptics, they decided to call it mindfulness-based stress reduction to make it kind of acceptable to the medical profession, who probably wouldn't otherwise have paid any attention to it. And of course, now you get mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy and a whole kind of plethora of different strains of mindfulness meditation practice.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Right, we're going to finish with some quick fire questions. Okay, so the first one is, what's your favorite mantra or quote?
Yes. Yes, one of the simple one. Yeah, today's a tomorrow we worried about yesterday, and I
Mm.
think again that sums it up. So now is the future that you worried about in the past. Yeah. Again, a quote by John Kabat-Zinn: "You're not who you think you are."
Mhm.
Again, letting don't allow your thoughts to define who you are.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I love pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, and a French philosopher, I think it's Montaigu. My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened.
Yeah, that's a good one. Great, thank you. And which book has had the greatest impact on you and why?
Eckhart Tolle,
Mm.
The Power of Now.
Yeah, amazing. And do you want to say why that one particularly?
Yeah, because I had that book on my shelf for probably about 3 years, and I met a Taoist monk, and he told me to read that. I said, "Oh, I've had it for 3 years." I said, I just can't get into it." He said, "Read it now," and I did, and I persevered with it. He's not the most accessible author at all. He's very quirky, but when you kind of pare back, the quirkiness of Eckhart and his writings, and you get to the essence of what he's talking about. It is very much about teaching you how to access that portal of the present moment, and really to discover the difference between your true self, the observer, as we talked about, and
Mm.
the ego, that illusion of self. It's
Mhm.
actually not more than an illusion of the self, it's a delusion. It's when you believe the ego, when you believe your thoughts, when you believe the identity is who you truly are,
Mm.
then you're off on a delusion with something deeper than that. When we reach the essence of, as Eckhart will teach, when you reach that state of knowing who you are, um, it acts as like an antidote to all of stress, all of worry, because you realise, we're just beyond this human form.
Mhm. Yeah, lovely.
And he's great on YouTube as well. And he'll
Mm.
sit before he starts talking. He'll just sit there for probably 3 minutes without saying a word. And everybody who follows him, kind of gets him. They
Yeah.
get beyond the weirdness, and you find Eckhart is an amazing guy.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. Last question then. What one learning have you had that you would share with humanity?
How long we got?
1 minute.
Yeah, I just think that the power of the moment, just being present, just being in the now, is
Mhm.
just an antidote to all of stress, because we can all cope with what's happening right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's that fear, that resistance, or what's going to happen next, or wishing we could undo what's happened,
Mhm.
wishing we could get to this particular destination, and it doesn't exist except in here.
Yeah, so true. Well, thank you so much, David. That's been fantastic.
Thank you for
Talk.
inviting me along, and good luck with your transformational coaching. And
Thank you.
if I can come back at some point in the future, then
Yes, you're
please
very
invite me.
welcome. Very
Okay.
welcome.
Yeah.
And for those of you in the community watching this, do drop in the comments what you've enjoyed about today's talk. What were your takeaways? And drop a hashtag replay if you're watching this on catch up. And I will see any of you who are around at 2 o'clock. The next session we have is where I will be talking about women's circles at 2 o'clock. So thank you, David.
Thank
We'll
you,
see
Sarah.
you
Have a
again.
nice day.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone. If you'd like to get in touch, drop me an email or contact me on one of the social media platforms. And if you'd like to find out more information about working with me, check out the services that I offer on my website, joyfulminds.co.uk. And I look forward to meeting you soon.